Hi everyone. As we gather this year, let me first thank the EAT Forum and the Rockefeller Foundation for organizing such an impressive and critical virtual dialogue. The past 3 months have been totally unprecedented for us at Danone and of course for me as a human being. Never before had our generation felt so vulnerable, so dependent from each other, so fragile in our beliefs and in what we thought were our strengths. The GDP of many of our countries will shrink probably double digits this year. And there is already huge pressure to seek to get back to the 2019 GDP peak as ASAP and at virtually any cost. I think this would be a huge mistake. These expensive short-term fixed measures would be sunk costs, as both demand and supply will be durably affected by the presence of the virus. And as all of us have been deeply, consciously or unconsciously, impacted with the discovery that our ways of living simply ignored that we rely on nature, that we rely on life to exist and to thrive. So with GDP per cap possibly going back 10 to 15 years, I think we should pause and think of this crisis as a warning sent to us from the future. So if we were back to 2005, what is it that we should be doing to avoid this from happening now? What are the ways of living, producing, consuming, the ways of eating, and that we should adopt to change course? What is the alternative path? The fundamentals of any resilient system is to preserve its non-renewable resources and to not pressurize its renewable resources beyond their regeneration ability. And GDP growth is not going to guide us on this course, because this is the very indicator that led us to where we are today. Over the last 50 years, the correlation is 98% between oil production, CO2 emissions, and GDP. And agriculture has today a CO2 footprint which is equivalent to the whole of industry. But unlike industry, which cannot put the emitted carbon back into the oil pit where it belongs to start with, agriculture has this unique and magic ability that it can sink carbon back into the soil, and it should, to ensure soil future health. So our future food system absolutely needs to embark carbon sinking, so that while driving planetary diets more plant-based than today, we also engage in regenerative agriculture practices fostered by market mechanisms to monetize this carbon. At Danone, we've decided to publish this year our financial earnings post full scope CO2 emissions costs, and our earnings are cut by half. But in GDP, and in IFRS accounting standards, resources come for free. The future food system cannot rely on a flawed model that assumes that natural resources are unlimited and free. Colorado River is so salty because of agriculture that when it reaches the Mexican border, it is desalinated, and yet it is then dying before reaching the sea on overuse again in Mexico. Is there really no cost to that? Chennai in India, 6 million inhabitants, the last few years had several weeks of day zero, no water on the tap, riots in the streets, rush to bring the water by tanks on trains pumped from aquifers hundreds of kilometers away, depriving farmers from their irrigation water. Is there really no cost to this? We speak a lot about wild species disappearance and loss of biodiversity, and I cannot agree more that it's an incredible loss. But the missing link is the battle for biodiversity in the cultivated, domesticated biodiversity, agriculture. Is there really no hidden cost or risk to rely on only a handful of plants that we know well for 3/4 of human food? And what about the loss of domesticated biodiversity? The progress of artificial insemination in the 70s radically changed the picture. From a few hundred insemination per bull, we went to 50,000 or more direct descendants. So last year, University of Pennsylvania found that in the DNA of a 60,000 US cow sample, there were only 2 Y chromosomes from 2 bulls from the 60s. Is there really no risk? So of course there is a need to reimagine our food systems, big time. Of course there is a need to price and value what we wrongly call externalities, as they are now the core of the resilience of our food systems. And we fail to recognize this in our models and indicators. I would actually add that the COVID crisis has obviously shed light on the indispensable work of the frontline workers of our food systems, and that includes farmers. And there is no way that we can build resilient food systems without decent revenues for all of them. As I have already emphasized in the past, food systems will even need to be a foundation for both social and climate justice. My hope is that the food revolution that started already for a whole generation, rich or poor, young or old, a generation which does not take food for granted anymore, which is questioning the way they eat and they drink, will be even more pushing and demanding for a change. In many ways, this will lead to an interdependent but relocalized food model. There are huge tailwinds for this: political dynamics, environmental reasons, civil society, consumer appetite for localization. If instead of being uniformly relying on global choices, pushing for mono food styles, mono agriculture models, mono species selections, our food systems are clustered, they will by design embed the urgent task of rebuilding agricultural biodiversity, the missing link. And these multi-local food cluster systems will be much more resilient as a total. So let me now speak about the last very difficult topic, the next frontier. We know that maximum intensity, zero diversity agriculture is a factor of pandemics. That just in time does not account for just in case. And if we truly want food security through a resilient multi-local system, we as an industry should accept to discuss what is a taboo today: food safety. So let me break the taboo for once. Our food safety dogma led us to a food system that is not living anymore, lifeless. We want to eradicate the part of life we don't like to a point that there is no life anymore in our food. The quest for global food safety through global standards is a dramatic factor of killing biodiversity and killing life. For instance, the use of seeds that are naturally mutating in the field is largely forbidden, whereas this is probably one of the safest and most affordable ways of ensuring the local adaptation of plants to drought and climate change through nature-based solutions. And on the other end of the cycle, the same goes with due dates in the fridge or in the pantry. If we want to drive down food waste to protect natural ecosystems, people need to be educated about food so that they can make informed judgment on how safe it is when they open the pack, beyond relying on the label they read. From working in livelihoods all over the world, urban and rural, I'm convinced that there will not be food security without an accepted, conscious, shared food safety risk. Today, people are fundamentally looking for food sovereignty. On this quest, many are prepared to take what we call food safety risks on their own. Let us realize that this is exactly what they're doing when in many countries they increasingly buy bulk. They go shopping in open markets, directly from local family farmers, or they grow their own herbs or a few tomatoes by themselves on their balcony or community gardens, whatever. To consider this reality as a fact and its opportunities for biodiversity and resilience, we have to accept to cross the bridge back to reality from the illusion that brands can and should guarantee 100% food safety and that it is the growl. It's not. Any resilient system will have to be one where brands truly, genuinely reconnect people with the reality of the food, with transparency and fairness. I guess the power of our brands will be a power to serve. This will radically change the way our brands will interact with their ecosystems. They have started, but it's only the start. We need the force of a collective to drive this change. And this is why I'm so grateful for the work done by Eat Forum and to continue to walk the revolutions with all our partners. So to finish, thank you for your commitment to change. We need your leadership more than ever. Thank you.